Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 111 of the Titanforge podcast. I'm Dranos, joined by Tettles and Trell as always, and this week's special guest, Pog indeed, is Steakloins. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello. So this week we're going to talk about a bunch of decisions that the game has made over the past 5 to 10 years, their ramifications, impacts, and such. But first, let's get to know our guest. Steakloins, where can people find you and what sort of stuff do you do?
You'll find me in Tuttle's chat if he's playing TFT often. Otherwise, you'll see me streaming on my own channel at just Steakloins, and pretty much every handle I have is Steakloins. Haven't had to compete for that one on many platforms, so it's pretty easy to find me.
You don't have to be Tettles1 anywhere.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
Dude, come on now. You don't have to. That is a sore subject. I would like that Twitter handle very badly. You don't have to do me like that. Thanks.
That's actually why my name is Trelsky, is because Trell is always taken on everything. Fun fact. That's a good tip though. If you're ever making a username and you're tired of your like first name _ last name username when you first start gaming, then try to pick something really unique like Steakloins.
Yeah, or just toss a bunch of numbers in there, like four numbers at the end. That'll be enough to keep it special.
Okay, so what are you renaming to D4 Atnos?
Yeah, no, I mine was not taken either because mine was just a WoW random number generator name. Back in
Dratno
TDC,
5.
the Burning Crusade.
Ratno 5.
Dratno 5.
Dude, there's so many. The 0 could be in there for an O as well. Anyways, as exciting as this topic is, it's not what we're here for. So let's start off with covering recent events which have occurred. One of which is, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel describing this as an event, but there was this tweet from Quick, the president of Blizzard, that was about, kind of a normal tweet here, streaming our Heroic Sanctum sales run and High M Plus tonight. And this sparked a lot of controversy, as you can see with the numbers here. A lot of quote tweets, a lot of replies. Like this one, unsubbed now. Basically, people angry about boosting. So, any takes on the boosting controversy? Anybody want to fly out an opinion about this one? Tettles and I recorded like a 20-minute video that's coming out soon about it.
Yeah, you know what? I'll come out hot the gates in this one. As a big sales guru that has made money off of all you people complaining, I love sales. And you know what? I'm going to keep continuing to do them. I've made so much money off of them. That being said, if I'm being completely honest, it's kind of like, I understand the idea of like you don't really like people playing with you if they bought a boost and they're kind of like deceiving their way into getting in a run. That I can understand is annoying. But my main thing as to why I don't think it's a really good argument is you have to keep in mind how few people actually buy these sales, and then an even smaller percentage of them intentionally use that to deceive people to get into runs. It's actually a really, really, really tiny amount of people, because I pugged a ton of keys myself at the beginning of the season because I had to get my alts up and rating and all that. You actually run into these people very seldom. So other than that, it's just kind of like if people want to do it, they want to do it. I don't want to grind gear the normal way. I buy sales myself if I have an alt. So that's probably my general take on that one.
I think that the people who are generally the people who buy sales are doing content that's not typically their primary source of like enjoyment in the game, like PvPers buying PvE boosts, Mythic Plus people who don't raid, just buying a raid boost for gear, that kind of thing. Seems to be more the MO and not the I'm looking to try to gain score to be able to deceive people in LFG so they'll invite me angle.
Yeah, there's like...
I think a lot of people definitely do it for the achievements too, and sometimes for the mount, collectors, that's for sure. And sometimes it is obvious they've gotten the gold with random means, like real money somehow. But that's pretty rare in my experience, I think.
I mean, there's the WoW token that just lets you straight up buy the gold for real life money, which I think when you're talking about like the multi-million gold sales, that becomes a much higher fraction of what people are using to buy the sales with. But yeah, I mean, there are multiple different ways people pay for sales, and there's multiple different things they're looking for, right? Sometimes they pay with gold they've grinded or paid the auction house for or whatever, or made from their own sales. Sometimes they're paying with RMT money, which I think is hopefully rare compared to the WoW token, since the WoW token is the same thing but safer. But that I think is pretty common, the WoW token buyers. And then there's people are buying for gear, they're buying for achievements, maybe they're buying for rating to, be able to get invited to stuff. I think that's probably pretty small compared to the amount they're buying just for gear and mounts and stuff. But I think the argument, like, people have an argument as well that's like, hey, these mounts are supposed to be exclusive, they're supposed to represent, this hard work that we've done, this accomplishment, right? And people being able to turn their real life dollars into a WoW token into that mount process existing. I understand the angst that people are having with that, but
I think one of the biggest things to know too is like a lot of WoW satisfaction is about the journey and about the process, and just because other people are buying something and like skipping ahead of you doesn't like diminish your achievements, whether that be getting AOTC, whether that be getting cutting edge, whether that be gladiator, whatever, right? Like whatever you deem is a success for you, just because other people may be taking the fast track and buying it, like. For me, the journey is like the most fun part. Like the most fun part about raiding Mythic isn't about just getting the cutting edge achievement, and it's about like accomplishing that goal and being able to get through there like that. So I really want it to be known that just because other people are buying something, that doesn't take away from your accomplishment by yourself.
My only other thoughts on sales are almost always it's benefited me once I was like a good enough player to be doing sales and Mythic Plus and Raid. But sometimes I actually am annoyed by it because, for instance, when I trialed with my current guild, we were doing sales the entire tier at that point until the next year. And so it was so hard to get gear during my trial that I needed. And I was just like, okay, I'm just never getting gear.
Did you get gold, or was your guild one of the ones that's like, yeah, we don't give trials cuts?
Yeah, I got gold at least.
Okay. That's good, at least.
Are there guilds that are like that, where they don't give their trials cuts?
There are guilds that do like half cuts for trials or no cuts for trials. Yeah, they're out there. You're getting scammed if you're in one of those in your trial.
That is cringe, yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm a terrible person. I think they should get a cut, but if it's like a slightly reduced one, like by 25, 50%, I don't have a problem with that, but I think I'm the minority on that one.
Yeah, that's a healer take for sure.
Yeah, same kind of gold that healers get of items. That seems fair to me, I guess.
Healers don't worry about loot anyways. They don't care.
All right. Other big news. Actually, one final point about this though. I think in general, like the people that see Quick tweeting this is a bad thing, I think it's really good that he's like in a guild that does sales, because it's very like almost all top end guilds do sales, and the fact that the president of the company is somebody that's actually playing the game at a high level and engaging with the community about it, I think is fantastic and a big step in a good direction. So,
dude, it was such a mundane tweet that people popped off of that. It was like literally like a I'm gonna be streaming later tweet.
All of us stream sales. Like that's what guilds do to refill and buy stuff for the next tier. You got to do it. Okay, let's talk about patch 9.1.5. which is releasing on November 2nd. So that is in 2 resets. It's not going to come with Legion Time Walking, though. Legion Time Walking will arrive in early December, around the same time as another critically acclaimed MMO is launching their expansion, I've heard. So interesting tension there. What to do.
Wow, which one? I'm just kidding.
One of those ones with the free trial up to level 60, you may have heard of.
The one that pays for streamers to stream it?
Well, that's all games that know what's good for them. Okay, 9.1.5 is coming. There's actually a lot of stuff that's happening here. If you've forgotten about all of it, the Mage Tower and Legion Time Walking stuff is some of it, but that's for 2 weeks in December and then not coming back till like April or whatever. But there's Covenant swapping, alt skip of like all the campaigns you've already done, doubling of the Soul Cinders from Torghast, run as many Torghasts as you want in a week, scrap your old legendaries, and you can get back all the stuff that went to craft them. So a lot of stuff is changing in 9.1.5. And yet, and you can queue solo for island expeditions, let's not forget. And yet, even with all that stuff, I'm finding it hard to be super excited to play a bunch more when this patch drops. I don't know. Like a couple months ago when they first announced all this stuff, I was really hyped to play with it. But now all the like systems changes that are coming, the content is so stale now that it's like, even still, it's hard for me to be super excited about it. I don't know if that resonates with you guys or what's happening with 9.1.5 for you though.
I think
Yeah.
that the patch cycle has just been very slow for me. Like I think that for me, I'm just kind of in limbo. I'm gonna play 9.2, do the raid whenever it comes out, play around with the new seasonal fix a little bit. I'm kind of just waiting for the next expansion because for me 9.0 lasted for so long. I kind of accomplished everything I really was like looking to do with the expansion. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like there's a lot of people share the same thing because like especially when it comes to something like covenant swapping, although it's made like a lot easier, more convenient, like right now everyone kind of has the covenant they already want, so it's like what reason do we even have to switch right now unless, you know, you're trying a new build or something got balanced. Personally, I didn't really like look if any of the covenants were changed at all, but I'm just saying like although it's nicer to change them, we don't have a lot of reasons to do that right now anyway, so it's just kind of like it'll be nice later on. So yeah.
Yo, like, are they not gonna hit okay.
Yeah.
I don't need to address the elephant in the room here. Are they not gonna fucking touch Windwalker AoE while they're uncapping them? That's like, okay,
It's
in
gonna be
my
so
mind,
broken.
that is the only spec that is really out of line. Like Havoc, Demon Hunter, and Arms Warrior and Moonkin are all
Whoa.
pretty good. Frost Mage, I'm sure, is going to be very strong. Windwalker Monk is like fucking not human, man. What is that spec?
I'm
Yeah,
kind of shocked as well. Go ahead, Joe.
I think Frostmage and Windwalker will just be like, that's the comp if they don't touch them after this. Just have 1 to 2 of each for your comp.
Yeah, that's been a big through line of the discussion when they announced the release date on Twitter. Was a lot of people were like, "Wait, where's the class balance changes?" Because when they initially announced 9.1.5, they said there was going to be class tuning and talent updates as well, and all that's kind of not materialized. That being said, if you look at the total number of features coming, this is still a huge amount of stuff for a .x.5 patch, but like, there's just so little actual base content to be doing.
It's so great that we're gonna have Ashen Hollow Holy Paladin for the 3rd consecutive patch be unbelievably broken.
They can just keep nerfing it by 5%. Do that 20 more
Only
times
10
and
more,
we'll be
yeah,
good.
20 more patches to go. Resto Druid will finally catch up in damage.
Hopium.
I'm excited to be able to swap covenants for raid. That's one thing that I'm happy about. Finally, like I really liked playing Kyrian Windwalker in raid, and I've missed it. I've just been kind of checked out of raid a little bit, playing a little passive. But that'll be fun to actually try to deal single target damage again because I'll have the correct covenant.
Yeah, I agree that it's going to be most exciting in point 2, right? Where those first couple weeks where you're torn between like a really good PvP covenant, a good M+1, and a good raid one, and you're like, you have to pick which one you care the most about, and usually you just pick raid. You'll then be able, next patch you'll actually be able to do all of them, which hasn't been true up till now. Okay, let's move on to the main topic. Main topic, we're going to talk about a bunch of the decisions that Blizzard's made and how they've worked out. So we're going to start off, we've got a lot of different types of thing in here, but the first one, sort of related to the sales discussion, is the WoW token itself. So the WoW token was added back in 2015, and of course it lets you turn dollars into gold and gold into game time or Blizzard dollars, but not, of course, back into actual dollars.
It got added just as game time. Like,
yeah, that's true. The Blizzard balance was later.
Yeah.
I think it was a good addition. I can't think of any downside personally.
Oh, that is a very controversial take.
Is it?
That there's no downside to adding the WoW token?
I mean, if you want to do like a nitpick, like, oh, there's this alternate universe 1% possible down 1% side, sure. But I think in general, if you understand exactly how they work, like, they're generally speaking is not really a downside. So I would definitely agree. Or I'm confident about it, but yeah.
Yes, the idea was like, obviously make money. Blizzard gets a cut out of every WoW token, right? For every $20 of WoW tokens they sell, they only give $15 a game time or battle balance, right?
Yeah.
So they're getting a pretty big cut out of the money going in there. But the other idea was to like cut out the gold sellers, right? Because before then the gold sellers were really prevalent, right? And the gold sellers, it wasn't just people botting and farming. It was people who would hack accounts, sell the gold from that account, right? And that was really negative process to, obviously, if that happened to you, that was really, really, really bad. So Yeah, it's nice that that is a lot less profitable now. Although there are still illicit gold sellers that do that stuff and offer a better rate than the WoW token, right? And that's how they get
Yeah.
people to buy.
I think the alternative opinion is that the game is pay to win, which I don't necessarily agree with. The game is definitely not pay to win, but that is the common argument, is that like it came across a lot with corruption too, buying and stuff
Yeah, I
like
was
that.
thinking
where
about
it's
corruption.
just like the game is super pay to win. Oh my god, you can just bust out daddy's credit card and buy all of this. Can you buy a world? Dude, I watched a "Can you buy a world first" YouTube video. Like, come on now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the pay. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, so it's like if people, it's one of those things where you could technically say pay to win, but like I'll make a comparison to League here. Let's just say you play League and there's some similar system where there's like some item you could buy, you could bring into games. It's like you could pay to win up until gold, right? Like past that point, this gold isn't gonna help you. It's about because there is things like where you have to buy, stuff off the BOEs, but they already have more than enough for that. It's like they would have done this regardless of if the token existed, like things like that. If there's not anyone calling it pay to win, it's like at an actual proper competitive level, no. Like it's one argument that some people actually bring up, I guess, is like the cost of vessels, for example. Those are really expensive. I agree. They took like way too long to make, way too many materials. But I think that's more of a crafting problem, not a gold problem. You know what I mean?
That's what I was gonna say for the corruption BOEs as well. Like that was just there were way too many BOEs that you could get with BIS corruption that you couldn't get otherwise at the start of that patch. I think situations like that aren't the problem. The problem is not with the gold token; it's with the systems, in my opinion.
It does kind of feel though like the gold has more consolidated in terms of like people will buy WoW tokens for gold specifically, and the people then who are generally the boosters who are buying the WoW tokens are the people who are taking the gold out of the economy in just like a little bit of a different way, or like they're and like it feels like very few people are even auction house goblins anymore, because it feels like the three ways to make gold right now is being an auction house goblin, you do boosts, or you buy WoW tokens, and there's not really much. At least to me, it seems like there's not a lot of middle ground, and then you have things like the vessels and whatnot that are, I mean, those are relatively expensive. I've seen some people complain about the cost of them. I didn't realize that like 100 or 200,000 gold was a lot of gold for some people, but like if you're not doing boosts or sales or whatever, yeah, that you're gonna fucking herb for
Right.
hundreds of
It's
thousands
not like
of gold.
classic, right, where you could go and get these rare things that sell for a lot of gold, right, and do like a herbing. I guess classic, like vanilla, was back when you could actually do it profitably, because not as many people were trying to, right? Yeah, it is different. I agree though that like a lot of the ways the economy is, less MMO-y than it might have used to be. Like, I don't think you fix that by getting rid of the WoW token. I think that a lot of that's just kind of natural evolution and more knowledge of how everything works.
Oh,
Okay.
I mean, you're complete. Oh, sorry.
Good.
I was gonna say you're totally right about that because in Classic, although sales and boosting has always existed in Classic, it's a lot more prevalent because exactly what you said. There is more knowledge, so you could see like the change in how the currency flows. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's like the comparison between classic and vanilla is huge though, right? Like it's just it's not the WoW token, right? It is the knowledge. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Next change, the AoE cap is the next one on our list here, which was implemented about a year ago and is dying mostly in 2 weeks. So, good riddance.
Worst change ever. Worst change ever. No point. Like I'm pretty sure their goal was to make the profiles of each different spec different, like the damage profile, and to reduce the size of pulls and dungeons, especially in MDI.
Well, you
Is
see,
that true?
they heard a lot of feedback from players that bursting down larger and larger pulls has become an overly dominant tactic in much of the
Yep.
game,
they
particularly
actually said
evident
that.
in questing and dungeons. That's right, questing. The AoE cap has fixed questing, which made it difficult for many classes to find a clear role. This was
Like, who in their right mind actually thinks that why would you
Alright,
not want
alright.
to do more damage? Why would you
I
not
have
want to
some
pull more
tinfoil
mobs?
hat. I have some tinfoil hat. I'm pretty sure this was implemented by people who just watch the MDI and get that as a point of reference for what dungeons really are.
maybe. I mean, I think this is actually it is a common complaint that big AOE is
Who did BFA dungeons with big AOE?
right.
What dungeon? Okay.
Yeah, I agree. It's more perception than reality. But I mean, if you look here, there is actually I cherry picked some of the dumbest lines, but there is some reasonable stuff in here about wanting different specs to have a different identity, right? Wanting to see outlaw rogues and fury warriors excel in 4 to 5 targets in close proximity.
That's why they're staying capped still. Omega lol.
And frost mages and half-locks perform better in sustained damage against groups of 5 or more.
I think it just made the problem worse, though. It just made the couple range specs that were fully uncapped even better and more desirable, and then force more specs to be in the middle where they weren't good at either situation than they were before. Like single target or big AoE, somewhere in the middle.
Steak, how about you? What do you think about the AoE cap and how it went down?
Okay, tinfoil hat. I think they did it because they felt maybe it would make balancing easier, but it just kind of ended up sucking and everyone hates it. And regarding healers, it was even more weird because like Consecrate and Shield of the Righteous for Holy Paladins was not uncapped. So like they'd go into keys and just obliterate them, but the other healers like didn't have. So I know the healer imbalance is pretty bad, but like you guys would know better than I would with keys and stuff. So
well, like Resto Druid, swipe is capped. And that's like their only spammable AoE. And so you're right, like Holy Paladin does have a huge leg up there with Shield the Righteous and Consecrate.
Yeah, for DPS specializations, I mean the AoE is honestly relatively balanced. There are some. I still think Windwalker is like the only real outlier on AoE. All of the other like AoE specs, they have their definite niches a little bit, but their damage is not as the disparity between like the top to the bottom is not as high as we have seen in the past. So maybe if that is what their goal was, then they definitely did achieve that. I mean, the balance is probably the best it's been in a long time.
I've always thought that the goal was reasonable of trying to like differentiate specs identities at different number of targets. It was just the ham-fisted way of hard capping half the specs in the game at 5, which is such a small number, and the hard cap is such a harsh way to, you know, that feeling where a 6th mob is walking towards the pole and you're not going to get any extra damage is just really negative and really cuts down on options in dungeons. So I think the solution they're doing now of soft capping at 5 and soft capping at 8 instead of hard caps is like all they had to do if they wanted to not have it just be awful, but they didn't do that and didn't listen, and so it was awful for a year.
I mean, is this alternative that they're proposing with like the soft caps and stuff like that, like really the way into the future? Is this like the best method that they could probably take here?
I think it has a good chance of working. Yeah.
I think as long as it's not hard capped for any spec, it's fine. I think Fury and Outlaw should definitely be soft capped as well, personally. And also, we didn't even talk about threat yet. Tank threat is so annoying with target cap. It's the worst. Like, you're doing the first pull of Plaguefall, right? Where there's 20 slimes, because that's the pull. And 2 of them start running at your healer, and you're standing in the middle of them, and none of your abilities are hitting them. And you're like, what are you supposed to do? Leave the other 18 slimes, and then all your DPS die?
Yeah, the crazy part as well is, like, they want to not... Like, the idea is to reduce the value of doing that 20 slime pull, but even if it goes horribly wrong and it's awful and unfun to do, it's still way better than pulling 4 packs of 5.
Oh my god, imagine pulling those slimes in 4 pulls.
Yeah.
I got told, like, not even joking, to cool down that pack of slimes because I was the only uncapped class in a run one time, and I was like, "Wait, are you serious?" I was like, "I'm down, but
they're dangerous."
Shit, I was not prepared to play for overall, but I'm in.
Okay, up next we have tier sets. This is going to be a hot one. Tier sets were removed in November of 2017 was when it was talked about. So I have here the quotes. With sets and cosmetic appearances, we're always trying new things. We're currently not planning on carrying forward traditional raid class sets. We're going to have art-wise. The gear will be more heavily themed from the place it comes. There's more customization we want to express through the new Azerite system. I think class sets have changed a lot over the years of World of Warcraft. Back in the day, these 8-piece sets were put together over the course of 6 to 8 months raiding a zone, where now the smaller sets and so many more sources of gear, it's very common to get 2 or 4 pieces at the start of a tier, and it actually kind of locks down those character slots. It limits your choices. It feels more like a drawback than a strength at this point.
I love how one of the arguments was limiting item slots for you to get upgrades in, and like look at the game today. It's the exact same situation.
Well, shards.
Legendary.
Shards is just an abomination, right? Like, shards is just all of the bad things here without the good stuff, right?
I have a legendary that can't conflict with my Shards of Domination slots that I had to recraft, and then I got my 5 domination slots. Huh.
Yep, that's 6 slots. Can't touch them. That's even worse than tier sets. Unless you were wearing a 4 set and a 2 set from the previous tier, which was a thing a lot of times, but in general, it's a little bit worse than it was.
See.
Steak, how about you? Do you have any tinfoil on tier sets?
Shit.
So I tend to not care about them as much as people do, but hear me out. So a lot of people like them because they bring like diversity to your class, which I completely agree. But my thing is, like, if I'm being super nuanced here, you don't need the tier set to do that. You could technically just have that with a patch update. I do remember, to bring up an issue they had in the past, like in Legion, which I still enjoyed this a lot, by the way, but you would go into Tomb with, I know Paladins would do like a 4 set. And if you were lucky enough to do Mythic Nighthold at the time, you'd go in with a 4-2 set. So it's like if someone came in, they wanted to raid Tomb, their Abyss was 4-2, they'd have to go back and farm the old raid for the 2 set, which is annoying. But it's like, at the same time, that's not necessarily the fault of tier sets. That would just be the fault of balancing. So I don't know. I think that that decision had to do a lot, again, with balancing. But it's like, it's not, the tier sets is like the symptom, not the problem or whatever, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's kind of...
That came around because, okay, so for the longest time, it was just 5 pieces of tier gear, and then they added a 6th due to Legion legendaries, right? So that's when this 2-4 set shenanigans started, right? It was Legion because of the addition of the 6th piece.
Yeah, and even if you weren't using 2-piece, 4-piece, you would often be like 4-piece and 2 specific legendaries in the other 2 slots, and like that.
Yeah.
It was restrictive. There were certainly problems with the way that tier sets worked, but there were nice upsides. Definitely, the way your spec played differently from patch to patch was really great. I agree with Steak, though. It doesn't have to be tier sets specifically that achieve that, but up till this point, the way of the tier sets did it, where it was a spec-specific effect, was a really good way to actually make it different. Because something like Shards doesn't... Like, Shards is a patch-long system, but it doesn't do anything interesting for how your game plays, right?
I do think like a 2-4 on like 5 on a 5-slot thing, like a 2-4 set on a 5-slot thing, to where you can't run the 6 set again, would probably be pretty decent, especially with how we're crafting legendaries now. I think that that's something that's not talked about a lot. Like the crafting of legendaries and being able to choose which slot you're putting the legendary in is a pretty big upside just as a whole compared to a lot of the other systems that we had in the past. I mean, you could definitely... I could see in a future where we do get tier sets back and you're just like crafting a legendary on a non tier set slot. I think that Shards of Domination, I don't know, were Shards of Domination just like them trying to bring it back? Like,
I honestly, and this goes along with my tinfoil theory, I was also going to say was, I'm pretty sure they just stopped doing tier sets because it was so much work to balance everything each patch. And they were like, oh, we're going to bring it back in 9.1. And then they were like, oh shit, that's right, it's a lot of work. We'll just do shards instead.
I agree. I think it's mostly coming down to like difficulty with balancing, but yeah.
Is that because people complained about balancing too much, you think, then? Because like you see this a lot. There's a lot of backlash and a lot of pushback whenever things are perceived as imbalanced, either too strong or too weak. You get like a lot of pushback one way or the other. And it's just like to the point where maybe it came across to the developers like the only thing that mattered was balance, and even at the cost of uniqueness on some level, because now we have like kind of medium trinkets and kind of Shards of Domination instead of tier sets kind of thing.
Well, I think the people are always going to complain about balance no matter what, even if
Sure.
things are really close. And when they are close, it's definitely appreciated. But if you compare like the shard system to tier sets, not only did they not have to design any transmog at all for the new set system in this patch, but they also didn't have to do anything class specific at all either, or even just weapon or armor type specific. It was all just a general damage bonus or healing bonus or proc type thing on a shard that you put in a piece.
I don't know if you've seen me lately on the World Trail, but I've been running the Shadowlands transmog, and I'm looking like a menace right now. It's all black. I'm looking very cool.
They did make 4 armor sets, and the 4 for Sanctum were good, right? It's like 4 instead of 12 art designs.
I guess there is transmog.
The armor sets, yeah. They've been a little hit or miss, though. The argument of like, oh, this frees up art style for us to do cool sets. And then immediately after making that argument, they released the first one, which was the older armor sets.
Yeah.
I mean,
those are such a banger. I don't know why they don't recolor those.
yeah,
again.
this one, like some of these are a little bit bugged, so that they're showing parts from different sets, and those look a lot better than the ones that are just full, correct sets. It's rough. Yeah, I mean, I miss a lot of those things about the old tier sets for sure. I do think that there were problems with the way they used to work, and there are ways they could get the upsides without the downsides, but shards were a way of getting the downsides without the upsides.
Yeah,
Okay.
look, I wore the Mythic Plate set. I don't care what anyone says.
It's
I
really
like that
good.
set.
Mythic Plate Sanctum set. Yeah, that thing is...
Oh, no, Uldir. I wore the
Uldir.
Uldir one, like, straight
Oh.
up.
I did too for a little bit on my warrior, yeah.
Oh.
Dennis, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, no. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to tip of the week. My tip of the week is you should skip to Fate Scribe. It's so much better than fighting those mobs that disappear. So the way you do this is you have your raid, you have a druid sneak up to the Fate Scribe rune, and you have your raid go and die down in the outer ring just after you kill Painsmith. You walk out, you turn left, and you just go and die in a little cubby that's not like, it doesn't have to be super precise, but just a little cubby close to where the Fate Scribe room is on the mini-map that you can see. And then your druid just goes up into the Fate Scribe room, gets as close to that point in the mini-map as possible, hits their mass res button, and your whole raid, you just get to skip all of that awful trash. Absolutely worth doing. Big poggers.
There's so much going wrong here. Okay, so first off, you're showing us an unlisted YouTube video, which means that this is going to go up on your YouTube page at some point. So this means that you are so out of content that you're showing a Fate Scribe like skip video on your YouTube page. Secondly, you've timestamped this and it says skip, and then in parentheses, big value.
Dude, it's
Like,
so big. Big poggers.
Oh,
Dettles, you
boy.
want to read out what this section in the show notes is called?
It says, whenever we do tip of the week, sometimes Dratnos like writes very broad things, and then sometimes he writes just like mega memes. And this week it says, "Skip to Fate Scribe is big poggers, epic Fortnite gaming." It's just like whenever you wrote it, I was like, what are you talking about, man?
Can't argue with
Oh.
what's written in the sheet.
So for that same skip, half the time my guild attempts the shroud and it fails every single time because some player doesn't dismiss a pet or something, or someone presses a movement ability because they see a monk roll during the shroud, or someone else moving fast. I'm like, oh, I could do that. But it's still funny because I don't think we've shrouded successfully a single time.
Yeah, the Bureau skip is the truth. Check out the YouTube channel tomorrow though for more hot skips through Sanctum of Domination. This one included.
Is this tomorrow relative to when this is being recorded, or is this tomorrow
Oh, yeah.
relative to when this is going up on the GG
Friday.
page?
Whenever that is.
Oh, you're really on a backlog for PoE. I see.
This thing's scheduled. It's scheduled. All right.
Uh-huh.
Joel, what is your equally good tip of the week?
All right, so mine has to do with storage on your computer. I'm really running out of content.
Sorry.
Oh boy. Hang on, let me.
But people are
Okay, I'm ready.
talking about this in our Discord. Titanforge Discord is a good place, by the way. Be sure to join it. But if you look in your like C or whatever drive you use, program files, World of Warcraft, retail, and then the log folder, there might be like 30 gigabytes of logs if you've ever logged. So you can delete that and save a bunch of space. And you might want to just clear that out every now and then, either way.
Okay, dude.
Yeah, this place in your hard drive.
Great
Per-
visual.
Can you show us that in your hard drive right now?
No.
Pull up your files directory.
Dude, I don't log. Why? Never
worse.
agree to start logging. Always make somebody else do it.
That is a hack.
All right. Let's see. Let's do Steak. Do you have a tip of the week for us? It's optional for guests. Don't have to.
At first I didn't, but when I heard how bad Trells was, I thought, you know what, this one will be fine. So this just absolutely sucks, but I cannot remember item names at all. So turns out the auction house has a favorite button. Maybe it's been around
that's a
since
good
classic.
tip.
I don't care. Like, I don't want to hear it. I'm just saying I just found it, so maybe some other people haven't either.
Oh, that was new this next pack.
Yeah,
I like
it's
that
real
a lot.
good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the favorite on the auction house. Oh my god, I can't remember item names this day. So
Yeah, put all your
Some of your
gems and
favorites.
chants and potions and flasks and stuff on it, and
yeah.
never have to search again. All right, Tuttles, do we need sound for your clip of the week here?
No, dude, I was just like, I don't know what to do for a clip of the week, so I
Okay.
just grabbed this. Dude,
Oh, nostalgia.
will probably... there's no chance I'm going to be able to get the werebear skin, man.
Oh no!
Oh, you can do
Tuttles.
it. No,
Oh.
Tuttles.
I spent 2 hours, man. It's not happening.
The tank one is hard. The tank one and the healer
tank
ones are
one is
both
hard.
hard.
The damage check on the tank one was actually not that small on that guy.
You can get apparently any gear, any level 50 gear works for it, so you can get like a twink time walking gear set.
They're already aggressively hot fixing that shit. So like the spinners from Hellfire Citadel were apparently very good.
Okay.
Immediately got slapped down during while the testing is going on right now.
Unlucky. Well, good luck.
There was also the Heart of Azeroth was initially enabled on it too, and it just like immediately turned that off again.
That this is a tangent, but that tank challenge was actually so good for me as a new player. At that time, it teaches you how to deal damage, survive while you're doing it, movement at the same time, because you have to constantly move around that platform to dodge everything, and then you also have to keep threat off of the NPC that's like heal. I think it's Velen. He's healing or something. He's dropping orbs. It's actually a really good scenario if they tune it well.
Well, didn't you do it for everybody? 36 bucks or something?
Yeah, I did all 36 specs at some point.
Are you gonna do that again?
No, I'm gonna do 3 specs.
Why not 36, bro?
Do
I
7
don't
for the
have
mount.
the time anymore.
The mount.
It was
Gotta get
super
the
fun,
mount.
though.
All right. Let's talk more about our main topic, which is decisions Blizzard made, things they've changed with how stuff works. This next one is kind of an amorphous topic because it's a little bit hard to pin down exactly what the change has been, but the main discussion is like bosses. When do end bosses die? How long does it take to kill them? Are they gated behind several weeks of gear? You know, if you look back at previous expansions, it was standard for bosses to live like 4 or 5 weeks often. Bosses like Archimonde, bosses like Kil'jaeden, right, would last several weeks. Whereas now it's 1 week or 2 week has been ever since Kil'jaeden, every boss has been in that range basically, which is a question of like, has they changed how they're balancing? Has the balancing just gotten tighter? Has the level of competition just gotten so high that it's gonna be it's just gonna be like that? You know, with any reasonably balanced boss, the Echo and Limit will kill it in the first 2 weeks. I don't know. This is the question.
I do really feel like, at least for this expansion, Blizzard has been balancing around the race world first. Just like some of their decisions for specifically Cyrodiil, Athreus, and Sylvanas makes it while you're also watching them in real time, like push hot fixes to the raid while they're watching these guilds progress through it. I think that they are definitely balancing around race world first. The question comes up then is like, is this a problem?
How about you, Steak? Do you have a conspiracy theory about the boss design plan?
Oh, no conspiracy theory, only truth.
Okay. Okay.
Those are the best ones.
No, I don't think it's like I hear a decent amount of people say that, but I think they've always tried to balance around it. I think they've just been putting more time into doing that more and more since there is like such big events around it. because like again, I'll make a weird comparison to League here. Sorry, but it's just kind of like, you know, if you're playing League, you kind of balance the champions around like the best players, not like people sitting at plat. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of up to the people to catch up to learn it. Sometimes you get some weird situations, though. I will admit, like Painsmith, where it's like these guilds got through it with a decent amount of time, but a lot of like mid-tier mythic guilds got really hard stuck on it, right? So I don't think that's really like the best. But no, I think they've always tried their best to balance the the bosses, especially the later ones, around like the first guilds, because everyone else can catch up with gear. Like that's their catch-up mechanic or whatever. So that's kind of what I always thought. But
What have
even
you been
nerfs
thinking
if
about raid
necessary.
difficulty?
Good.
I was gonna say, what have you been thinking about raid difficulty this expansion then?
like, what do I think about like this current expansion's difficulty?
Yeah, have you been happy with it?
Um, in general, yes. It just kind of sucks how there's like these random really bad ones like KT. I think Sylvanas was balanced fine. I just don't like the fight. But it's just like, yeah, KT's balance was, you know, pretty bad. But then, you know, you look over at Sludge Fist, that was an amazing, whatever it was, 7th boss? 8th? I don't remember. You know, SLG is the same thing where
SLG.
it's just like that design sucked. Sire, I think the balance was maybe a little easy, but it's just like overall, I'd give it like, I don't know, like a C minus. I don't know. It's hard.
It was pretty wild that Guardian and KT both this tier were near the end of the tier, and they were both like significantly smaller pull bosses compared to like SLG and Sludgefist. It's pretty wild.
And Painsmith,
The-
even.
The
And
only 200 plus pull boss we've had this expansion was Stone Legion Generals, by the way.
Yeah.
What a lovely
Wasn't
fight.
Sludge 200 plus? I swore it was.
It's like 150, right?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
150.
Maybe that was. Never mind.
Whatever you cast for World
Just
Second
saying.
Guild. Whatever you cast for World Second Guilds, like Echo during Castle Nathria, maybe it is 200 for them.
Yeah, my bad.
Dude, I don't think we're in a position to to make that joke, Dettles.
I got nothing to say. Actually, Jonas wearing his Castle Nathria shirt.
What, dude? This is the Sanctum shirt.
Oh, never mind. Sanctum Domination shirt.
This is the Echo X Limit Sanctum shirt.
Oh,
Those are really cool, yeah. Okay. Anyways, okay. Another thing. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like over the past 2 years of raid design, there have been more and more fights that call for damage stops and punish you harshly for not stopping damage
true.
correctly. Like, I feel like when you wipe on Kel'Thuzad during farm, at least, when you wipe on Painsmith during farm, there's a very good chance that like what has wiped you is you pushed a little bit too fast, and you could either fix it by pushing a little bit faster or a lot slower. And like usually the easiest thing to do is just push a lot slower, and that's really, really, really sad.
I never know what to think about that. I've thought about that a lot, where I always wonder if it's because of the boss design is different and it's gotten increasingly worse in that aspect to where you have to stop damage all the time, or if it's because the player base as a whole is more aware of timings now because of add-ons and development of watching the world first race, and everybody has multiple different sources of information to tell you exactly when everything is happening. I don't know.
It's because the raid balance is not great. They're being way too lenient with the raid balance, is what I will say. Like the damage checks specifically. Like there is never a point in time where your damage check should be alleviated by you should never have 20 seconds of leeway to stop damage, sit there and look at the boss while it queues up 6 abilities, and then you're like, oh yeah, now we push. Thanks.
Yeah, the thing I would like to see is just some more hardened rages, like fight long hardened rage timers that are designed to mean that you have to just keep doing damage the whole way through. Because if there's something like that, then you just don't get the freedom to AFK for 20 seconds per phase or whatever.
It's just so weird because we went from these really silly like global time. Okay, so for what it's worth, we've gotten rid of these Zakul terrible global timers with like
Right.
tentacle garbage, but That was so bad. The 40 seconds of AFK on Pol Unzakul was not it either, but we are in the shadow realms of KT, so is either of them better, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the way they redesigned KT was good. If they could also make it so you didn't have to stop damage on the ads in the intermission, it'd be even better, or the phylactery for that matter.
Yeah, a little bit more wiggle room. I think they should add some more wiggle room for killing the phylactery early, and then you just get to go ham on both.
I mean,
Yeah.
one of the biggest issues is honestly just like the addition of covenants. It makes every spec in the game now has a cooldown, right? They have a bonus CD to press every minute and a half, 2 minutes,
4
minutes
minutes.
potentially. Yeah,
Yeah,
4
true.
minutes Ashen Hollow, one drop of Ashen Hollow potentially. But it's like those things are so polarizing, and now every spec is a fire mage, and they do the most damage every minute or whatever whenever their CDs are up. Every spec is super bursty to the point where you just want to play around their cooldowns like that, and it's honestly not fun. Like having to play such a heavy feast or famine style where you're doing 70% of your damage inside your CDs and you're just AFKing for the remainder of the fight while you wait for your CDs to come back up is such a it's just like a really not fun design. And like obviously burst damage is always going to be the most valuable damage profile. I mean, that's always going to be the case where CDs like the strongest CD specs are going to be the best, but at the same time just every spec being like that is, I don't know, it's weird.
One of the most like unfair parts about that is like people get the 2-minute CDs and then HPALs, all we get is the 4-minute Ashen. Like we need more than that. It's just not enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that brings us into our next point here, which is the discussion of the healer meta. So this expansion, Holy Paladins were given Ashen Hallow, and Disc Priests were given Power Infusion. And that's really helped us shake up the healing raid meta. Now we're seeing Holy Paladins and Disc Priests finally seeing some play in raid. How do you, Steak, how do you feel as a healer about the current state of the healer meta in the raid? How did we get here?
So there's like my selfless side and my selfish side, I guess. Like the selfish one is I personally don't care because I, as a player, don't care what I play. I'll play whatever I'm told. I get the raid spot. Doesn't really matter, right? However, I can understand like if you're someone that really wants to play Mistweaver, you really like Holy Priest, it does really suck, and I think a lot of people aren't super happy about it just because it seems like there's some decent solutions. Prior to Ashen Hollow, these healers got brought in because it's like Disc has Barrier, HPAL has Devo, and Shaman had like Spirit Link and like just generally like really useful utility healing. A lot of people just felt like the solution was like none of these other healers have that. They're just output, and that's not what you need for prog. You need to survive these things that bring your raid down to like 5% health, right? So I'm not exactly sure what the solutions are. I have some like random ideas, but yeah, I think most people aren't happy. I know I see people like J-Dot especially be like, oh, people are complaining about DPS balance. Wait until they see how long healer's been the same. Like I've seen that said a million times, which I totally agree.
If they buff something like Resto Druid by 30%, would it even be meta? I'm pretty sure the answer is still just like no.
I don't think so. No, they don't. They just don't have the DR. They don't have the HPAL damage.
I mean, we're kind of seeing that with Mistweaver, right? Like Mistweaver right now is doing tremendous amounts of healing, but it's like, and people
buff them.
People complain about the HPS that it's doing, not realizing that like you still wouldn't play it for prog. Like maybe you would play one for prog, but it's still not as good as Disc Priests and Holy Paladins. Like it's much less replaceable. The throughput is always something you can find enough of, but DRs that's gold for progression. So yeah.
So wait, how long until Resto Shaman just starts playing Vesper Totem even during progression?
You're gonna have to walk me through the logic on this one.
More damage.
It's AoE, Dan.
Yeah, it's AoE.
But it's better than Primordial Wave.
Yeah, they do a lot. I think it's possible. I don't want to say something too presumptuous here, but like no, I agree. I've seen a few logs here and there. I definitely think it's a possibility.
Yeah, I think one thing they could do is right now the damage and the DRs are both on the same two healers, right? Like Priests and Paladins have the damage and the DRs. I think splitting those things up so that some healers do damage and some healers have DRs could be a good first step.
Make Rejuve give a 2% DR while it's active.
Whew. That's like the old
Make-
Disc Priest Atonement trait from Legion. You guys remember that one? The artifact trait in like in 7.2 that started giving the DRs to everything that had atonement.
Yeah, that was good.
That's bananas. Okay, let's also talk a little bit. Healers, they made a decision to sort of shift Holy Paladin and Mistweaver to being melee healers, and the other healers to being ranged healers. How has that all worked out?
All right, I know I know I'm passionate about these. I'm sorry, but it's just, man, like I just don't like it. I liked HPAL before it was the Glimmer thing. I know that like generally like Mythic Raiders, I want to say, don't really like it. The thing that makes it annoying is especially if you have fights where it really limits melee, which I think this tier is kind of okay. But if you have like a raid where it's like you generally only want to have 4, maybe 5 melee, 2 of them are HPALs. So then, you know, what else is left? It just kind of really limits spots. I don't know. Sorry, I'm like.
I mean, it's definitely harder for melee healers to be in the right spot at the right time. Generally speaking, I agree. And there's always the fact that melee healers can also get mechanics, right?
So did you guys know on Sylvanas for the first 2 months of that fight, Mistweavers could get targeted by Wailing Arrow, but Holy Paladin couldn't?
Okay, we were so confused whenever our Mistweaver was getting the arrow. We didn't figure. We were like, wait, did our other healers get the arrow? He was like, I was not prepared for this arrow. And we're just like, well, you just gotta go to the other platform, man. It's really not that big of a deal. He just had to like run the arrow. It's so silly that nobody tested Mistweaver Monk. Like, what? How is that happening?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, HPAL can get targeted by the boss teleport in phase 1. I can't remember right now. What's that called? The Veil.
Oh yeah.
Phase 1 of Sylvanas. So you have to. So technically, HPAL would have to run to Narnia and not do anything for like 10 seconds if they want to bait it properly with the range outside of melee.
On a hot opinion, I'm pretty sure Holy Paladin should have had to deal with the chains on Payne Smith. Fuck them. Can you imagine? Can you imagine them just like standing at range, throwing judges like across the room? Be like, bro, I can't heal.
Yeah, I think melee builds for healers is cool, but I think they should be just that. Like, they should be builds that are at best slightly better than building like a ranged version of the same thing. Like, if there was a fight like Sludgefist where you're like, man, we really only want to bring 4 melee, the Holy Paladin should have the option to be like, all right, I'll be arranged on this fight and do like 2% less healing and 20% less damage.
I actually strongly agree with that. Like, way back in Uldir in Fetid, this was like just before Glimmer had come out. It's like we had so many melee in our raids, so it's like I chose to play the other thing, which wasn't as good, but it's like, man, I'm just not going to stand in there. I do like the idea of you have the option, even if it is a tiny bit worse, and that's like, I'm not just saying this just because I love Legion, but like I really like the idea of the mastery where it's like you can completely play in ranged, but you're just encouraged to be in melee because you'll get like 20% more value out of it, right? I just like the idea of mastery where it's like it just encourages you to be in melee, but when you run out, you aren't useless. I feel like that's always been like the best design if you want to force someone to be in a certain area.
So why is Holy Paladin forced to be in melee right now? Is it just Crusader Strike, or what's the problem?
Yeah, HPL specifically, it's like you want to be in melee because 1, your damage, and 2, you just use Crusader to generate your Consecrate does a ton of damage, and you still just do more in melee from like your mastery and stuff like that. So, and Light of Dawn as well is a relatively short range. So,
yeah, you still play the Crusader's Might thing, right? Where Crusader Strike is doing your healing stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to reforging, a contentious topic that comes up from time to time when people discuss a lot of the nostalgia goggles gang. Reforging is one of the first things they'll mention about why the game was so much better back in patch whatever in the early 2000s. Yeah. So reforging was added. God, when was it added? I feel like it was added in Kata. I don't know though. And it was killed off after MoP. think.
After Mop, yeah,
Yeah.
it did not make to Warlords.
And it was this system where you could take your item, you could put it in the Reforger, and you could transform, like, say it was a crit haste item, you could transform, like, 80% of the crit on the item into Verse or into Mastery, which I guess it wasn't Mastery at the time, but, you know, into a different stat, right? And that was how it worked, into hit or expertise as well. Get you your hit cap or your expertise cap, where you could turn hit or expertise over the cap into other stuff. They got rid of hit and expertise, and they got rid of reforging, and some people have never recovered.
I wish there was a expertise cap to not get parried by the boss. I'd actually stat into that ASAP.
Yeah, so the argument is that like reforging represented customization and being able to make your gear do what you wanted it to do, and that sort of stuff. And more interesting gear itemization, which I do think there's an argument that right now we have 4 different flavors of versatility as our 4 secondary stats for a lot of specs. I don't know. What do you guys think? Was reforging the solution?
Well, this is kind of off. I mean, it's on topic, but it's not
Okay.
my
We'll
opinion.
detour.
I don't really have a good opinion on it because I didn't really play any of those X specs that had reforging in them. But if reforging was brought back now, and you could say convert some versatility into leech or avoidance, I think that'd be really cool.
I don't think you'd ever choose to do that, though, right? Unless it was a really good raid.
Well, yeah, but as a new system, I mean,
Okay.
as well as other stats. Like if you get to choose some tertiaries instead of secondaries, I think that'd be a really cool decision.
Steak, how about you? What do you think about reforging?
So I'd have to sleep on that one. I don't think I'd like the, like, don't get me wrong, I love stacking my leech at the detriment of my raid. However, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. I think my thing with reforging is I really view it as a rose tinted glasses thing, because at the end of the day, now that reforging is available, all it does is change what your best in slot list is. You're still gonna have your, this is my best rank, this is my second best. I don't really think it actually did anything. I find weird how much people cared about it. Some people can maybe just find the system fun, I guess. But for some people to go as far as to, you know, say like I quit the game when they got rid of reforging, it's like, really though? Like, does it really change how you play, what buttons you're pressing? Like, it just feels a bit like a pointless system.
I feel like the Great Vault and like spammable Mythic Plus kind of solves this issue, right? Because if you really need a ring with some stats, you can go get it from like Mythic Plus, and then you can Valor upgrade it up. Alternatively, you can just wait for something to show up in your vault that is a high item level piece, and you're able to select that if out of the content and get it at that 252 item level that you're really looking for, or that highest item level, or whatever it's going to be in the future. I think that there's just like a lot more gear. I don't know exactly how it worked in Mists, but I know that they definitely didn't have Mythic Plus then. Was there other like great gearing options outside of Raid?
Not really.
Okay, so I guess reforging was probably good if the only pieces you were able to get were from Raid. And so then you're like, this stat is bad.
Yeah, and it was an important thing with the hit and expertise caps that made those a lot less painful than they were in expansions without the system. I think if it was reintroduced now, it would just mean that like your raid bots is now 3 times as many iterations, and every time you get an upgrade, you have to go and visit this person and put in the reforges that raid bots tells you to do. Because even in MoP, that was what people did with it, right? Was you just ran a sim and it told you what your best gear was and what the best reforges were on all of it.
Well, that's why they removed it, right? And I actually think that the reason that they removed it. Well, this was before raid bots was even a thing. So then you have to download like
Ask Mr. Robot.
Ask Mr. Robot was always bad. Ask Mr. Robot is still bad. Do not download that. That is malware for your computer. You would have to compile the sim. You'd have to compile like using a C++ compiler, like the SimC profiles onto your computer, and then like sim them yourself. It's not Hackerman. It's, okay, whatever. Anyways, then you just like sim them yourself using the Simulation Craft tool, which was not very intuitive for what it's worth. It would be a lot better now because I feel like everybody can use raid bots. It's point and click kind of thing. I do think that they made the right move by getting rid of it, though. I think that it's one of those systems that was kind of dated.
I do empathize with the wanting gearing to be more interesting and wanting stats to be more different and impactful. That part definitely I do. I do
Okay, so
get
then
where that angst is coming from.
how do you make stats more impactful then?
Right, it's not with reforging. I don't know how it is. I think, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Oh, they're
Let's move
trying
on.
to like.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
No,
I was just gonna say they're kind of trying to mitigate that with like the soft caps that they're introducing, right? Or are those two? I was just gonna say, or is that too loosely related?
So the soft capping that happened in this expansion is a good point. It is a new system it's designed to make it like less that you're supposed to stack super lots of crit, but it doesn't really do that for most specs. Like all it does is for some specs it slightly increases the value of getting 2 stats instead of 1, because crit becomes 10% less good after you get 20% of it or whatever.
I don't know about you guys, but all of my stats are valued around my IQD breakpoints.
Okay.
Literally nothing else.
Okay.
Like, why does
It's
that matter if I'm just gonna get mana from you anyway?
True, dude. That's my raid is. I
Way
could use
too
bricked
real.
in my raid. It's so bad.
I am innervating you, and then I will please stop spending mana.
Oh, I've actually had Boomkins innervate me in raid when I know they're.
Oh, dude.
Mine do that too. Yeah.
It's so tilting. I'll look at her like Mistweaver or Rusted Druid. They're sitting at 20% mana, and I'm like about to use my box, and I'm like, "Yo, can you mana potion right now? Like, please, mana potion." And then I'll throw them like an innervate, and it's just like, oh man, because I just know that they're gonna steal my mana. They're steal my stats. I need it.
What's interesting about that is that reminded me about the soft cap on stats, but on my Windwalker, I have like 43% crit, and crit is still my best stat for single target damage. It's kind of crazy. So it doesn't really affect us too much at the moment. I think maybe in like the last patch of an expansion, we'll notice it more.
Maybe. I mean,
maybe
stats,
maybe some specs already do, but I don't know.
Stats already had diminishing returns relative to each other, right? The more crit you have, the better the first point of verse should be, right? Because it's doing more, multiplying with all that crit. This just slightly increases that, but it's not enough to really make the stats interesting to me, at least.
So the only way to actually make stats interesting is to add breakpoints into like the default kits of the classes.
Maybe. I think
breakpoints are like really annoying.
Yeah.
Like having like hard stat breakpoints. Fire Mage and like Legion have like a 50% crit breakpoint or something like that. I think Holy Paladin also in Legion have like a 50% crit breakpoint.
I don't think that's the only way. I think like
that
there are
is
some
a
specs
way.
where it's like, oh, high haste has this sort of feel and this identity to it, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna burn more mana but do more throughput because I'm high haste, right? Oh, I'm gonna heal, like Holy Paladin Mastery, right? Oh, if you balance the masteries such that it's like, hey, if you're playing under these circumstances, this stat's good. Otherwise, it's not good. A lot of specs, right, have a different stat priority in AOE versus single target, and a lot of specs don't because the stats are really not doing anything different at all, right? So I think there's stuff there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good, real big solution for it.
Okay, so what made stats interesting in the past? Because like as long as I've been playing, like stats have always been just kind of, all right, I'm wearing my highest item level gear. Intellect is my best stat.
Well, so it used to not be so much highest item level gear. It was like, oh, there's some really sick OP stats you need, like spell damage or whatever, that you're just supposed to like seek this out and you hold this item for 30 item levels or whatever. But yeah, I agree with you that it's a good point that stats have people have rose-tinted glasses about how interesting itemization used to be. Okay, let's move on though. Let's talk about raid sizing. So another big change that happened coming into WoD was I guess it was in Siege, but over that time was the creation of Mythic as a difficulty, which was a big change from the last time they messed around with raid difficulties, which was in Wrath. When they added 25 and 10 heroic and 25 and 10 normal. And so now we are in the world we're currently in, which is 20 player mythic at the top, and then heroic and normal flex 10 to 30, and then LFR at the bottom. So we've got the 4 difficulties with mythic at the top and being at a fixed raid size. How does everybody feel about raid sizing and raid difficulty splits as we see them right now? Steakloins, you want to go first?
Okay. Yeah, sure. So I actually remember when this change came in, there were a lot of people upset about it. And again, a lot of this is due to sometimes there's a large portion of people kind of being mad for the sake of being mad. But I feel like the reason for this is just pretty obvious. If you're gonna add a difficulty where it's like, this is the hard difficulty, like we want it so very few people can clear this, it's you can't balance that around two raid sizes. One big example that you saw of that was way back in Wrath when you fought the Lich King. There was a mechanic called the File. It's like the infamous one. Basically, how it worked is the second it was dropped, if anyone's standing in it, it expands. Well, that's way more likely to happen when you have a raid size of 25 people, so 25 is considered the much harder version. So it's like you absolutely need to for the highest difficulty. But to be fair, I remember at the time they didn't introduce Flex right away, which means this really, really hurt 10-man guilds initially. So they were not happy about it since it's like, we want to do the higher difficulty, but how do we like double our, roster suddenly? So the transition wasn't very good, but I think it's absolutely a necessary change that was necessary it was completely necessary for this difficulty for balancing.
I would tend to agree, and I actually think that 20 is probably the correct number, because the alternative would be probably either 15 or 25, and I feel like 20 is, at least with how many specializations we have in the game, you kind of get like a good just like grab bag of a little bit of everything, especially too since we're running into this issue where like a lot of specs and a lot of classes have like you at least bring one of them because of unique utility, whether it be buffs or whatever. But at the same time, that does make for relatively unique raid comps, and you're still at the same time you're able to still stack things to the point where more or less like you're able to like run like 4 hunters if you deem them OP for a fight, because you do have 20 slots, and virtually 10-ish of them are kind of open on a per fight basis. Realistically, it normally comes down to like somewhere in the 5 to 3 range that are kind of up in the air for just whatever you want to run. But at the same time, I do think that 20 is the correct number. And I do think that consolidating, like, I agree 100%. I think is the right amount.
4 HPALs for World First Guardian.
Yeah.
2 disc priests. 2 disc priests, of course.
We're talking about healer meta. Yeah. I think that if you look as well, just kind of at the last 5 years of raiding, they've been 5 great years of Mythic raid fight design overall, right? We've had some bangers. Most raids have had a good end boss. There's been a lot of good other bosses scattered throughout there, and I do think having one single number that they're balancing out, I think 20's worked out well. I do think that like the raiding has been the strong point in the game for the past 5 years pretty reliably. It's always been a strong point, even going back to when the game had multiple strong points, like Legion M Plus and stuff.
How do you feel about recruiting 20 players? Like, do you feel like, okay, so I think I see this complaint, not even an insignificant amount, that 20 players is too many to have to recruit, and that it feels oppressive with just how many people you have to keep on your roster. I don't know.
I do think that it's challenging to maintain a big roster of 20 to 25 people for sure. I don't know. The problem is I don't think a 15-man roster would solve that problem. I think it would just be hard enough to find the foundation of players that you would need.
Yeah, it's hard to find a 5-person M Plus team, right? Like,
yeah.
It's just hard to find people to play with, and it's true. It's true. The less number, the easier that is. But I don't think there's like a breakpoint, right? I think it's just like, I don't know. I don't think there's a special thing about 20 being harder than the other numbers.
So Alliance should have 15 though.
The fact of the matter is, it's always going to be challenging to put a group of more than 2 or 3 people together, no matter what you're going to do in a video game. You got to find people with the same goals, and we talked about this quite a bit. But it's not like other games where you could just queue up. You actually have to like form a big network and make a team.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, because if you think about it, it's like how many games is there like a high enough level, like passes that high enough level gameplay threshold and requires this many people? I think we just play, I'm not saying like WoW is a bad game, it's just more, this is a very like old game, and it'd be pretty hard to like change the core like way raids work. So yeah, 20 man is really hard, but it's just kind of like, I'm not really sure there's a solution to that.
We could just be Overwatch pros and then completely kill our pro team by changing from 6 to 5 people on a team.
Dude, that's so weird. Yeah,
that was a wild change, by the way.
Like, I don't follow Overwatch much, but I read it. I was like, what has been happening here?
I don't know anything about it. I just read it, and then they were complaining about how many people were looking for teams because because people had to get cut.
Right. I mean, that's the thing.
How it
If
goes.
we went from 20 to 15 or to 10,
That would also, I mean, it's also like a player versus player game, right?
Right.
Team versus team. So that would change the entire dynamic of the game. Like, imagine if they changed League of Legends from 5v5 to 4v4, or same thing with Dota 2. You know, that'd be crazy.
I do think that with WoW though, I genuinely like to think that if you cut it from 20 to 15, there would be. First off, I think you'd have a lot of people quitting the game. Like, frankly, I feel like there would be just so many people that ends up like quitting the game on the spot because you're going to have to cut probably at least 5 people from your roster, and if there's some of those 5 that get cut, the odds of them going and finding a new guild is probably going to be a little bit lower.
well, also
because
like it's going to be DPS you're cutting, right? It's still going to be 2 tanks. You maybe cut 1 healer, but like
maybe
the nice thing about 20 is the ratio of tanks to DPS is pretty good. You know, you cut the number, you have to have more tanks. Tanks are hard to find. That's the limiting factor. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's good. I think this was a good change. I think it's worked out well.
Would you survive the cut in your guild, Dradnos, if your guild had to cut down to 15?
Dude, I'm not sure I'm going to survive no cuts, man. I'm out here living on the edge. My raid spot, it's a week to week thing. It's touch and go.
I said, oh no.
All right, we've got a couple of Q&A questions to get to, but first we get to thank our supporters over on the Patreon in the ever-expanding list of names. Up first we have Tetley the Westie. That's Tettles is the owner of Tettles at Tettles on Twitter. Hitachi Vibes of US Tichondrias. Riley. Finally swapping my druid back to Night Fae. Time to relearn how to spam Thrash. Ja. Dratnos' Dino Pillow. Chromed. Trekkie. Never Nude. Chewy. Trelsky is Texas barbecue ribs, extra lemony, lard, and salad kale. Yum. Delete agrees with Tettles.
Feels gross.
Delete agrees with Tettles. WoW has become a seasonal game, and this season is over for me too. Oh my god, it's so sad. It's not AMZ, it's AMZ. Salty Senny, Necris, Tankdill, Nevuk, Bread Ceratops, Sinmora, Eevee, New World Main, Take Lighted Protector and Frenzied Regen off the GCD, No Trick, I Scheduled a Tettles Flame, Dimat, Kurin, I hope your birthday is as wonderful as you are. Happy birthday. That was last week. Get with the times. If you don't have a bubble wand macroed into your abilities, are you even a gamer? Nix, Yo Kurin, I heard you like birthdays. I added a happy birthday to your birthday so you can birthday on your birthday. Gallic, Brusif, Dratnos Ratzabyss, Cats are Gentlemen, and the Pets of Gentlemen. M Sanity, Xena, We Are Praying Hanny will pump in 9.1. Rogue is now good enough for Prague, still bad enough to be sat for SLG, bless up. Red Color, youtube.com/workbringer. Walking Atlas has 2262 dungeon score and is 10 out of 10 heroic. Ahar looking for a new guild. Good luck, Ahar. Unfortunate. KSA's mythic team is trash cans and not trash cans. Alphabet Soup, Druid Friends of Evolved Gaming, number 1 Simski for Trelsky, Lolari, Lurka got a new job that will keep him out of daytime keys. Daytime keys are now 100% Lurka butt pull free. That one dude RP walking in Arathi Basin Comp Stomp, Milk, Narnar the Marsh Hare, Sochi is the number 1 little green man on US Thrall, Tim ist der Geilste, looking for cutting edge guild, taking in Mistweaver refugees. Roses are red, violets are blue. This week is Curran's birthday too. Happy birthday, Curran. Thanks all for the support. Whew.
How many weeks has it been his birthday now?
It's 2. This is the second week of his birthday.
It's only the second, but we'll see
This
how
is
many.
definitely the third.
Is it a third? Okay. I missed
Yes.
that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Okay, let's do Q&A. First one is for Steak here, and it comes from Vex, who asks, why does she feel the community perception of balancing for the 1% is bad for the rest of us? The 1% just doesn't like Korthia grinds, Torghast grinds, etc. They just want to show up and blast, but the community believes the 1% is against the greater good of the game. It's an interesting question.
So I read that and I was a little confused by it because, or it's like assuming that I feel the community perception. I was a little confused by it, but if I try my best to answer it, I don't think they balance outside raid stuff around the 1%. I think they just wanted a system. They just generally want systems to get people to log into the game and kind of keep the daily thing they have going on. But I don't really think that's balanced around 1%. They just kind of have you, like, you know, log in And the community believes the 1% is against the greater good of the game. That's just that last part. I just don't think that's true. I just see a lot of people randomly say that. It's like, no, they're just balancing raid around the 1%. The rest is just like random systems they, put into like, get your legendaries and stuff. I don't think that really has much to do with raiders.
Yeah, it's an interesting narrative that's you do see it from time to time, but I agree. I think that like it's pretty misguided to think that 1% want the game to be good at the expense of the casual experience, right?
Dude, it always like what even is something that is beneficial only for the top 1% of the game that's not also beneficial for the game as a whole? Like it just blows my mind. That take, I don't know if you get that a lot in like your YouTube videos or anything, like the content that you guys make, but I've gotten that a couple times in my YouTube videos, and I just sit there and I read it, and I'm like, wait, what even is, like, what is he referring to?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like time spent on mythic difficulty for design-wise is something that, doesn't benefit most players, benefits the 1%.
I think where it stems from at least is people will figure out how to do insane numbers on some spec or with using some item, and that'll get X ability or X item nerfed for the game, or some change will branch off because of that. And so I think a lot of people view that as balancing for the 1% because they're the ones that figured it out. They're the ones that did it first. But that trickles down, and they'll apply that to all kinds of other things that are definitely not because of some player doing a lot of damage or healing.
Yeah, maybe also they feel like we're getting like too many raid tiers whenever there could be things such as like the wardrobe filled out and stuff.
Hey, yeah, it's true that like 1% players would prefer for that time to be spent on making great raid fights or whatever, but it's different teams, right? Like the teams that made it so you could shift click a transmog in 9.1.5 and link it, which is very cool. I love that. It's not like that is at the expense of the person who makes mythic raid fights. Like those are two different people. I guess it is a resource allocation thing, but I don't know. I think there's a happy mid ground here that
there's definitely not. There's the 1%ers of WoW. Like that's actually it's just insane.
Okay, next question. How does the casting community look at the current content drought? Is there still a lot of interest for events from the community, or has interest dropped while we wait for new updates? And also wanted to ask for her perspective on DPS representation and balance in M+. This comes from Cal and Epic on Twitter. So feel free to take whichever parts of this question you want first, Steak.
How to look at the current content drought. I mean, to quote Tettles, thrown under the bus, we did a new raid, I need money. So I think...
Wait, did I say that verbatim?
I'm sure you have.
I mean, I'm down, but like...
Yeah, I think all casters just like events because realistically, yeah, you make money and it's generally considered a more fun way to make money. So they probably think that. I don't really ask too much, and I don't really do too much outside of raids, honestly. But is there still events from the? Yeah, that's the other thing. I don't know about you guys. This is at least what it seemed like from my end. I feel like a lot of people want to put events together, but the problem is getting like enough players that are good enough interested to compete in them, or having like a prize pool's incentive. It's like I think a lot of people want events, but they're actually really, really hard to put together.
Yeah, we do see some community events from time to time, right? There's the Keystone Masters tournament. There's Oasis community runs. They run some cool tournaments. There's the Keystone Builders tournament that they run, right? That is, I don't know, Charlie, if you either did that or it was just people in the Discord that did that.
Just our Discord, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
There's stuff with PvP too, like third-party PvP tournaments, and but also I agree it's a challenge to put together.
Yeah, it's tough because
a lot of knowledgeable AV people to work on the actual production, and then also finding the competitors is a hard task these days.
I think it's also like a money allocation issue. WoW is such an old game that it's typically going to be hard to get sponsors in such an older established title if you don't have like big sponsors already in the space. Plus, Blizzard is kind of capitalized on that. Like, so for some communities, I guess I'll use Super Smash as like an example. They do all of their stuff as like grassroots, like almost 100%. It's just grassroots tournaments that are funded by just different like companies and doing different things. But with WoW, like there is so much stuff that is done by Blizzard, for better or for worse. It just makes it difficult to do these tournaments that are grassroots and like get sponsors for them and that kind of stuff, because you do also know that it can kind of be taken away at any point.
Yeah, especially like, you know, Blizzard announces stuff pretty close to when it's going to happen, and so you could always just have whatever community event you're running, and Blizzard puts something in the same weekend, right, or puts a patch date somewhere that ends up being pretty rough for it. So it's tough. I mean, the relationship between the game companies and the esports scenes that they're in is always a fraught one, right? It's always tough to balance all the different wants of all the different parties, but
Yo, we got the Great Push and MDI finals up soon, so
yeah, MDI finals next weekend.
Well, speaking of that, they won't have the 9.1.5 changes for MDI finals like we once thought was possible. I wonder if that's one of the reasons why it was delayed till that day. It's like right after finals, right?
Can you imagine if it came out like next week?
Yeah. It was just the
fun.
first week of the new changes. That would be pretty wild.
They spent 1 week on the old patch practicing, and then they get to spend 1 week on the new patch practicing.
It's just an affix
That'd
that's
be
revealed for each
absurd.
dungeon is what patch it's played on.
Holy shit!
All right, next question comes from Kyrelli in Discord, who asks, "What role do you guys think WoW's aging code/engine plays in the myriad bugs and technical issues with the game? Is it time to start thinking about a fresh sequel or something?" Oh, the WoW 2 question. Furthermore, could this also partially explain the slow pace of content and updates generally, as the development team likely has to navigate outdated systems and tools to get anything done? Also, huge thanks to Ratnos for continuing to upload content to satiate us during these difficult times. You're welcome.
do not compliment him.
That's right. Check out the YouTube channel tomorrow for the skips through Sanctum Domination. Exciting content in these trying times. I think the WoW is a relatively unbuggy game when you compare it to a lot of the others that are out there, right? Like, it's pretty smooth, all things considered. I don't know. I mean, the aging engine, you can definitely feel it, but
I think the issue with the engine isn't necessarily like that it's old or anything. I think the downside with that is that it's like hard to hire new developers to work on your game whenever you have a game that's off of some obscure proprietary code base that was made back in 2004. It's like it would be really hard to like train or hire people based off of something like that, but it's definitely doable. Is it worth completely rewriting the code like that? That would have to be like a brand new start. But man, the servers are struggling right now. I don't know what the problem is.
I think in the like nitpicky things about the gameplay, I think there is definitely a struggle happening with the game engine. I think it's so hard for them to identify some kinds of issues. I've seen them try to fix certain issues the last few years and just not be able to do it. Like the invising the prides last season. They definitely attempted to fix that and they did not succeed, unfortunately. There was a boss in Legion, second boss in Eltharian's Lair. They tried to fix a bunch of bugs with his guessing game like 4 or 5 times, and they finally got it eventually, but it did take them a long time to figure it out.
Well, those aren't the things I'm worried about. I'm worried about like the world of boss lag and like
Right,
the Sylvanas lagging me out.
Yeah.
Like, and oh my gosh, dude, the OCE servers are actually just barbecue grills. I don't understand. They are.
it's flavorful. It's themed.
Okay. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
those are definitely bigger issues, and the fact that like whenever one thing gets changed, then 12 other systems somehow get affected by it in crazy ways. You know, on patch days, you're like, whoa, how'd that even break? You know. Or like, how did a boss ability from Nyalotha make it into a Shadowlands raid suddenly? Stuff like that's crazy.
Wait,
you know? And I feel for these developers. Oh yeah, there's
Yeah,
like
Rathian's Blizzard,
Rathian fires.
Firecast replaced Kel'Thuzad's for a couple hours on the patch or something.
yeah, yeah. Stuff like that cracks me up. But it's got to be rough for these poor developers because I imagine someone walking in and looking at the code for like the monk class and just trying to decipher the history of developers that have worked on just the monk class is probably really tough. I don't know.
What do you think, Steak? Do you have a take on WoW 2? Is that the way forward, or
Save us.
As much as I know the answer to anything or everything, just unfortunately, I don't. This comes down to more like coding knowledge stuff, which I know very little about, honestly. But ideally, would I personally want like a WoW 2? Yeah, I'm a huge fan of like the same game but new graphics kind of thing, right? I do think a new engine would fix a lot of things because I mean, this may be a bad example, so like coding people can roast me here, but even on Sire when there was like we figured out the lag issues because there's too many instances of things happening with the ads or whatever. I feel like things with that like that would be way less likely to happen on new engines. But again, I don't understand all the stuff that happens. I can do like a join in SQL, like that's my limited knowledge.
I have it. What if we just took the old world and deleted it?
All right, let's move on to the next question here. This one comes from Foden in Discord, who asks, on boosting, would removing the WoW token fix the issue of boosts being normalized, or would it go the other way and lead to people buying gold from shady websites to keep up with the already well-established infrastructure of gold boosting / switch to boosts for IRL cash? Definitely, it's hard to put the genie back in the bottle as well, right? Because like people just have all their WoW token gold already, right? And that's if you take it away now, that's still going to be all there that they bought. Maybe. I do think unless you had really good enforcement for RMT, a lot of RMT would jump back up. I don't know.
It definitely would get rid of boosting because I played like before tokens were a thing. Boosting has always existed, always will. Like my guilds before the token were still doing their weekly. Oh, we have a buyer for Mythic. It's always existed. So getting rid of tokens wouldn't make the problem better or worse. It would just be like what it was in WoD. Like you still did boosts.
Dude, how is everything so expensive now? Like,
because of WoW tokens. It's because you can use WoW tokens to buy the new Call of Duty or whatever, Diablo and all that stuff.
I guess like, maybe
the demand for that is pretty high. Yeah. Okay, final question comes from Doodoo on Twitter, who asks, how are your eyebrows, this is for you, Steak, how are your eyebrows growing, and did they have any effect at your workplace? This is the eyebrows you shaved for charity during the Echo Race to World First stream. How did that, what was all the ramifications from that?
Okay, so eyebrows don't take 4 months to grow back. Yes, they have grown back. Did I have to deal with anything in the workplace? No, because I didn't go in. Oh, you know what? I actually just messaged my boss and I said, I don't have any eyebrows. Is it okay if I don't come in? And he said, that's fine. So I didn't go in.
That's a life hack.
That was it. Yeah, it just he's like, well, I think he asked. I'm like, I just shaved him for charity. He's like, okay, that's fine.
Does he know you play World of Warcraft?
No, I'm afraid if I say the name of the game, that's too specific and people could find me, and I don't want people to find me putting a toaster or like a steak in a toaster, like one of my top clips. So I'm just like, I just say, yeah, I stream like League.
I don't think the issue is them finding you. I think the issue is definitely them judging you for playing such a dead game.
Dude, it's amazing that for 15 years it's always been embarrassing to say you play World of Warcraft, right? Like back then, even in like middle school, right, 2006, it was it was a game that was like it had a reputation for being no lifers and stuff, and
yeah. So Dratos told people that he played Magic the Gathering instead.
Dude, Magic the Gathering owns. I played WoW then Magic then WoW. That's been my trajectory. Anyways, that's out of the scope of this episode, as is everything, because the episode is now done. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Steakloins, remember, on all platforms is where you can find her. Thanks for coming on the show. Much appreciated. Thanks for sharing all of your wisdom on these different topics.
Yeah, thanks for the follow on Twitter.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You. Dude, she caught your ass.
And yeah, Tettles and Trell, I will see you guys next week for episode 112. Later, everybody.
Later.